Hi, everyone. Welcome to Built by Endurance, where we interview endurance athletes who are crushing it in business. Today we have Schalk from South Africa. Welcome, Schalk. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us the quick version. Who you are, what you do. I know ultras have been a big part of your life. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I'm a South African. I think that's a good start. um, yeah, I'm a professor at the University of Pretoria, and then I also have my own business, trying to stay afloat. And then done ultra racing for some time. I think I started, 2014 was when I started. And yeah, I've done a couple since then.
So I know you've done a 100-mile race. Kind of what led you to do that? How did you get involved in doing such a insane distance? Was it just something you always wanted to do, or something someone got you into?
Yeah, it was interesting. I actually never really thought of doing a 100 miler after I started doing ultra races. I actually didn't know that there was such a thing. So my story started with in South Africa we have an ultra marathon called the Comrades Marathon, which is very well known in South Africa, probably internationally as well. It's called the ultimate race for good reason. So it's about 90 kilometers between Durban and Pietermaritzburg. So every year it changes, it's either a up or a down run. And that's been a big race in South Africa for a very long time, more than 100 years actually.
Oh wow.
And yeah, as a child, I used to watch the race. It was a big thing. It still is, but I can remember being a child sitting in front of the TV watching the whole race from the start until the last person finished. It used to be 11-hour cutoff. So the cutoff was actually, so obviously the winners was good to see, but the 11th hour cutoff was actually also a big thing.
Hmm.
And then they later in 2000 changed it to 12 hours.
Okay.
So that was kind of in the back of my head as a child growing up, always thinking I would one day like to do the Comrades Marathon. And then in 2014, one of my friends said that he's going to do it. He has done it before, and so I thought, well, maybe I should do it as well. But I was a bit overweight at the time, well, a bit more than a bit. But so I started from really almost nothing. And yeah, that was an interesting year. At the end, I did not manage to finish the Comrades in 2015. All sorts of long excuses. But then in 2016, I came back and I finished it. And also within the target time, which isn't a great time, but 11 hours, 10 hours 50 something I think, which is just below 11 hours, which is the what you require for a bronze medal. So that was quite an achievement. And then yeah, I don't know why I did it, but I then somehow googled I knew a bit about trail running, but not a lot at the time. And I thought it would be interesting to do trail running, and I thought, well, if I could do the toughest road run in South Africa, surely I can do the toughest trail run in South Africa. So I just googled toughest trail run in South Africa, and then the Sky Run came up, which is a 100-kilometer race. And I said, well, let me do it. I've since made a rule to myself, never ever enter a new race within the 2 weeks after finishing Comrades, because you think you can do anything after that. So I've made a rule not to do that again. But anyway, so that November I did the Skyrun. I was fortunate to finish it, 30-hour cutoff. So I made 29 hours 20 minutes, and that was quite tough. And then a couple of years later, we used to stay in the Sabi area, and then there were guys that started the Mac Ultra. And the first event was in 2019, yes. So I thought, well, it's in Sabi, it's in my playground, so I can't skip it. so, and yeah, I thought a 100 miler would be tough, but I mean, 100 kilometer sky run is also, it's right up there. So I thought, well, it's in Sabi, so I can train on almost all the let's say the sections of the trail. There was one section that I couldn't train, but I was able to run probably close to half the sections before the race. And so it was close by, it was in my backyard, and I thought, let's do it. But yeah, the Mac 100 miler is a tough one. Took me 41 hours to finish.
Wow. What does the training for a 41-hour 100-mile race look like? I don't even know, because at a certain point it doesn't matter how much you train. It's really
No,
all
it
mental
doesn't.
at that point. So how do you mentally train to be prepared for a 2-day where you're running for basically 2 days straight?
Yeah, so I'm on the slow end, so I don't target finishing fast. I target finishing. That's about it. So to put it in perspective for anyone that does marathon running, my best marathon is I think 4 hours 25 or 26, which is it's okay, but it's in the bottom half of most fields. So I'm not fast. So I don't push to go fast. I try to keep a consistent pace. So when it comes to those type of events, I think there's when I run races, I tend to listen to what people say along the way. And there's a guy that in one of the races said that you need to simulate, and it kind of just kept in my head. And that's basically how I can summarize it. Is if you want to do a race like that, you need to simulate going through more or less what that is going to be like. So, for example, if you're going to do 40 hours or even 24 hours, a big part of the race will be run at night. And you need to be able to do that. So you can't just get up at, let's say, 6 o'clock and then go for a run every day, because then most of the time the sun is up, and you train in, let's say, cool weather. But when you do a race day, especially a long day, then it's cool weather, it's warm weather, and then it's dark. And you need to be prepared for all of those different phases. So if you train, you need to simulate all those phases. And I would say, yeah, like you said, at some point it doesn't matter if you train harder, more, it actually becomes worse because you overtrain. So you need to get the balance right, but you definitely need to put in long runs. So I would typically do at least a couple of 6 to 8 hour training runs in, which is tough. It's all in its own quite tough. I still remember training for the sky run. So that was usually when I do a training run, I start somewhere and I run until I got back. But there was one day where I called my wife. It was about 5 kilometers from home, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna make home. You need to come and pick me up. And that was a tough day. There was a couple of things that went wrong that day, but I also learned a couple of hard lessons. So with trail running, it's specifically challenging because you tend to train in areas where you don't necessarily know the routes, and yes, with GPS and all of satellite imaging, everything gets easier. But there's still some areas where you usually need to kind of go with your gut feeling in terms of the routes. And sometimes your gut feeling is wrong. So I made a couple of mistakes that day and made the route much harder than it had to be. But that's also with even with the Mac and the Skyrun, on both of them, I actually got lost for a period of time, and you need to be able to cope with that as well. Um, so
You got
that
lost
that
during the
is
race?
yeah. Because I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
you use a well, I use a GPS watch at the time, which was great. It worked fantastic, but it's not perfect.
Hmm.
So it's easy to take, let's say, not a wrong route, but just go too much left or too much right, and then once, I mean, actually in both cases, I ended up on the wrong side of a river, which is a bit of a problem because to get on the other side of the river is, yeah, it's not always that easy. So, and it's cold, so
Yeah.
which doesn't help. But yeah, I think you need to obviously be prepared for situations like that as well. And yeah, at some stage, if you're lost, realize you're lost and kind of know how to track back and keep calm, obviously. Um, but yeah, being fit is a big part. So you need to train regularly. Um, yeah, I think it's also for me. It's been interesting. At some stage, I trained 5 or maybe sometimes 6 times a week, but now I rarely do that. I rarely train more than 3 times a week, and I feel more or less the same. Like I said, I'm not training to win, so
Yeah.
I think if you're training to win, it's a different story. But for me, it's a funding thing to do, and I just want to finish. And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, it's better to make mistakes in your training than in the race,
Mm.
but then you kind of understand, okay, well, I've made mistakes before. Now I know how to get back on track. But do you
Yeah.
have pacers when you do these races, or are you totally by yourself? Like, do you have people run with
Trail
you for
runs,
like parts of it
yeah,
or
trail
no?
runs are obviously different from road runs. So trail
Okay.
runs, if you do a sky run or a 100 miler, then most of the race you're pretty much on your own, unless you go with friends. But then
Hmm.
your friends also need to be the same pace as you, which is probably rarely the case. So so with the heavy trail runs, I mean, you sometimes I don't even see someone for hours. But road runs are completely different, especially in South Africa, because of the comrades and the two oceans, marathon running and even ultra runnings are very popular. So we will easily have more than 1,000 at any marathon,
That's a
a
big
couple
field.
of thousands. Um, but when it comes to pacers, there are pacers. We call it buses. I'm not sure what it's called in the US, but so in South Africa we call it let's say a 4 hour or 4.5 hour bus on a marathon, even the ultra marathons. But I found that my pace is usually not the same as the pacer or the bus's pace. So if, for example, I might go a bit faster on the downhill and a bit slower on the uphill, and then if I adapt someone else's pace, I actually get tired sooner. So I try to keep to my own pace, but especially with road runs, trail runs is difficult because it really depends on the route.
Mm.
But with road runs, I usually have a target pace and try to keep to it as long as possible.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Well, we'll get a little bit into your career. I know you're involved in the timber space, but I just wanted to touch on, you said training at night. That's you have to
Mm.
simulate the race.
Yes.
Does that, how do you juggle training at night and training for these races, maybe 6 hours, 8 hours in the middle of the night, and then also have your associate professor and your startup as well? I know you're working on. How do you juggle these things?
It's a challenge. Yeah, keeping, yeah, spending time with family and all of those things as well does make it challenging. So yeah, when I think when I was a bit younger, it was slightly easier. Now, yeah, I have quite a number of balls in the air, so to keep them all in the air is sometimes a challenge. But I think the answer pretty much always stays the same is that you have to have more or less a plan or a schedule and try to keep with it more or less. What I have learned over the years is, especially with the running, is that you you need to, yeah, I think you need to listen to your body as well. If you're tired, rather rest another day and then go full out the next day. So when I was younger, I wouldn't do that. I would get out and run whether I was tired or not. And then I would regularly have runs where I felt afterwards this was a complete waste of time. Whereas now, when I do a training session, I regularly feel, okay, that was a good training session. Because when I don't feel well before when I start, then I leave it for the next day, and that kind of works for me. But I think that is something that to some degree comes with experience, because what works for me and what works for someone else is not the same. And again, if you are very competitive, then obviously it's a different story. But for me, I mean, if I plan to do hills on a Monday and I move it over to a Tuesday, it's not going to make a massive difference. So yeah, but having a plan. So, for example, I would typically get up at 4:30 in the morning to do a run, and depending on what time of week and the, um, the season as well, and then keep to it. If the alarm goes off, then get up and go for a run. And the same with work is that try to have a schedule and keep within that schedule. Like I said, there are always exceptions, and you manage around that. But if every day is the exception, then it becomes chaotic, and then it becomes different to manage. So if you have more or less a program, keep to it more or less, then generally it works.
That makes sense. Well, I know you're involved in the timber tech and innovation space. From an outsider, this kind of seems like an area where it's kind of hard to innovate timber and make
Mm.
new technology around that. So I'd love to hear how you got involved in this space and kind of what that looks like for you.
Yes, it's been an interesting story for me in any case. So I didn't grow up working with wood well, maybe a bit, but not a lot.
Hmm.
So I, yeah, I didn't know the timber industry until I got into it. So I actually started off in um, closer to the mining industry, refining industry, and then was a bit ambitious and things were going a bit slower than I hoped for, and I took a leap of faith into a new position. And yeah, I think once you're in the sawmilling industry or the wood industry, um, you tend to like it. Well, let's say if you've worked in it for a while. For me, there's a couple of things that comes out is that I like complexity, and the sawmilling industry specifically, or the wood processing in general, is a very complex industry once you get into it. And I like a bit of math as well, so trying to solve difficult math problems is, I think, integrated into wood processing. So that's been interesting. And yeah, so I've been involved with York since 2010, York Timbers, which is a forestry and wood processing company in South Africa. But then I moved to the university in 2020, and after a while the opportunity came along to look into promoting timber construction in South Africa. And it kind of aligned because the main funder happened to be York Timbers, which was my previous employer. So that kind of happened to work out. And yeah, it's been an interesting experience. In South Africa, we traditionally don't build with timber. Parts of our houses are actually kind of hybrid houses, so brick and mortar, and then we use timber for the roof trusses, but we don't do timber frame generally. So we are looking at how do we promote it in South Africa, and there are various aspects that we address. So some aspects is related to research and improving the standards, and then just improving familiarity, and also preparing students to be able to design and build with timber and getting them excited, because I'm obviously very excited about it, because I think it's quite fun to work with wood compared to other materials. So it's you can be very creative with it, and it's environmentally friendly as well. So there are a number of things working forward, and so we are just trying to get the students involved with that. And we've been fortunate to be quite successful. We've been building the program over the last couple of years, and I'm very excited about what we have achieved and what we are planning to achieve.
That's awesome. Interesting niche that you're a part of. Well, tell me about WoodTechie. How did that idea come to life, and what's that focused on?
Yeah, that's been a couple of twists and turns. So I started the business just before I joined the University of Pretoria. It was actually 2 weeks, I think, before they sent me the offer. I registered the company. At the time, I actually just wanted to develop designs for wood and make it easier for people to work with wood. And after that, the idea kind of evolved. So we moved to Pretoria, and that took a bit of time. And then I thought, well, maybe I should, instead of just designing stuff, I should actually make it. And there I did learn an important lesson. Okay, I was an engineer for some time before that, so I should have known it probably, but drawing something in CAD and making it is not the same. Even if you've got a fancy 3D piece of software, manufacturing it and putting it together is not exactly the same as just drawing it. Not that drawing is easy, but I'm just saying you need to understand the material, you need to understand the manufacturing process and the tolerances. Tolerances is a big thing, especially when you start working with wood, because you need, if you want to fit it very accurately, you need to consider the exact thickness of the material, and what it's in your drawing and what it is in real life is not always the same. So we got a CNC router at the time, a smallish one, and we started making stuff. And what ended up happening is the stuff that I designed weren't as popular as the stuff that my wife designed. So she was much better at making stuff that people wanted. So there I also learned something, is that even if you have a great idea, if nobody buys it, it doesn't help. So Yeah, so I actually have a phrase that I repeat to my students is a great product is good, but it's not good enough.
Hmm.
So you need to be able to sell it. And so the stuff that she designed kind of sold better than the stuff that I designed. And then what we also learned is that the stuff that we were making at the time, a router wasn't the optimal machine to use. So then we got a laser cutter, and yeah, then I operated the laser for quite some time. I think I probably have a couple of thousand hours of laser cutting behind me. Yeah, then eventually we appointed some people, and we've done also some consulting work through the business. But yeah, it's been up and down.
That's awesome. Really interesting that, yeah, it seems like feel like you have such a good idea, but then in practice it didn't really come to fruition.
No, I think, yeah, being an entrepreneur, I must say, sounds very romantic. Um, it really does if you're not one. But after starting a business and going through all of the experiences around it, I think for some people it can be very romantic, but for me it's been a tough experience. Learned a lot, but I also think my approach from the start to some degree kind of helped me, and that was that I saw it as a learning experience. So even
Hmm.
if the business wasn't always successful, um, I thought as long as I'm learning something from it and I can still keep it afloat, it would be worthwhile. And yes, I've learned a lot. And, yeah, doing your own business is tough, but there's also some benefits in it, especially from a learning perspective.
Well, it's good that you had your wife to help you out with the designs.
Mm. Yeah,
So what
no,
is the
that
future?
I mean, yeah, that helped a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what does the future look like for WoodTechie? Do you have a goal, like a 5-year goal? What's kind of like the plan?
Um, yeah, like I said, it's been a tough ride. So at this moment, it's survival is the most important thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think uh, survival, and then keeping on looking for opportunities, and testing waters constantly. I think that's one thing I've also learned is that you can read books and learn a lot from it, but in practice, it's always a bit different. So, and it's a lot more experimentation until you get it right. So, I think what we're going to try and continue to do is to experiment until we get a formula that works, and then we'll leverage that as much as we can. And I think another thing that we've learned is that we had a formula that kind of worked well, but there was a specific risk that it's a marketing approach. So we used social media quite extensively, and the risk that I identified is that if that one avenue for some reason stopped working, then we would be in trouble. And that's exactly what happened, is that this specific avenue didn't work that well anymore, and we weren't able to adapt quick enough, and that's made it challenging. But I think I've learned through that again as that even if you have a successful formula now, that it doesn't mean that formula is going to work 6 months or 12 months or 2 years from now. And you need to continue investigating how you can improve that formula and whether there aren't any other formulas that works better. Because once you get stuck in a rut, it's difficult to change
Yeah,
and
that makes
stressful.
sense. Yeah, I bet. Well, I wish you luck in your endeavors. But it was a pleasure having you on the show. I really appreciate you coming on. If people want to connect and learn more about you, where's the number one place they can go to find out more?
I would say LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
I
that's
will.
where you got me.
Yeah. I will
Yeah.
add all of the LinkedIn in the show notes. Well, all
Yeah.
right, everybody, take care. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you on the next episode of Built by Endurance. And as always, if you want to listen to more interviews with endurance athletes killing it, make sure you subscribe. All right, take care.